You know I love showing off chips. So this is the very first 7-nanometer x86 mobile processor. And in this form factor that fits into ultra-thin laptops, we have 8 cores and 16 threads in a very, very, very powerful device. So this is the Ryzen 7 4800U. And what you see is it has 8 Zen 2 cores, 16 threads. It goes up to 4.2 gigahertz. It has 8 Radeon cores. And when I spend a minute on the graphics cores, we've actually done a tremendous amount of optimization around these graphics cores. So they're based on our Vega architecture, but they actually have 59% more performance than the previous generation. And that's all the design optimization that's been done. And all of this fits in a 15-watt envelope. So that's an incredible amount of technology in 15 watts.
There was a need for a new, more powerful approach: GPU-accelerated computing. The NVIDIA Volta GPU architecture is the next giant leap forward in computing performance. It employs over 21 billion transistors paired with second-generation high-bandwidth memory. Volta introduces new tensor cores designed to dramatically accelerate deep learning, delivering 125 teraflops of performance in a single GPU. With next-generation NVIDIA NVLink for direct communication between GPUs, Volta is designed for strong scaling to achieve the highest application performance and ultimately save you money. It delivers breakthrough acceleration in over 500 HPC applications and all deep learning frameworks for both training and inference with TensorRT programmable inference acceleration. Volta powers the world's largest supercomputers. It is also being adopted by all leading cloud service providers and every major data center system manufacturer. This is the one unified computing architecture for HPC and AI, bringing solutions to the world's greatest challenges within reach.
Think for yourself. Question authority.
What's up, guys? We are here. How's everyone doing? Let me know in the chat how everything is going for you today. We have a lot of cool information to talk about, and that intro was there to show you basically what was going on in the world of mobile technology, and of course with the information going around about this rumored GPU for this new, more powerful Switch for 2020 with that Volta technology. A lot of people don't understand much about Volta. And to be honest with you, I didn't know much about it either, so I had to look up information on it. And besides the Xavier SOC. So how's everyone doing? Hello to Wakanani1. He's the first mod I have on the channel, so welcome. I figured I needed at least one mod. He's been around for quite a long time. Life is dank. Astral is off the chain. Welcome, everybody. So usually what I do in these streams is I have a discussion topic, and I expound on it, and then we discuss it and go along and have a Q&A kind of later on in the live streams usually. So we'll go over the information. We'll discuss everything here. We had a really cool week of info going around, and it's always fun when the topic you're most interested in, me personally, since I've been covering it since last year and what forth, is now the hot topic of this year already for almost everybody, really, for Nintendo fans who are interested in new hardware. So that's why my channel's been doing really well, getting lots of views on the videos. So thank you all for coming. And if it's your first time, I think you'll really enjoy this stream. You'll get a lot out of it. Try to be as educational as possible. We're going to go over some information here. We're going to show some info about this, the Tegra Xavier SOC, and just talk about more about that and the possibilities of them using something like that in this new Switch. Is it likely? Is it unlikely? And other technology as well, like with everything that's going on with there's a new Qualcomm chip coming out, and there's also Imagination's tech that they're using. I showed it in the video there. There's also, of course, everyone knows AMD is going mobile big time with their stuff. So where's Nvidia and all this? Where do they play into it? So we'll discuss that. So earlier in the week, we had some information that I discovered from Nintendo's job postings in Japan, which nobody covered besides me that I know on my channel. But they listed a brand new network infrastructure that they're working on with their developers in Japan, in Kyoto. And they basically were requesting people to work on this new network infrastructure for Nintendo's online and things like that, and for communication with your friends, namely with Miiverse. I'm not making that up. If you go watch the video, Miiverse was mentioned in their job requirements for them to be working on Miiverse, basically, or some kind of messaging app for communication with your friends online. I thought that was huge news. So I did a video on that, and I think that would be awesome if Miiverse does return. Because just because the Wii U failed doesn't necessarily mean Miiverse had to die. But obviously, since the Wii U died, it made sense they had to get rid of Miiverse and end that service on the Wii U because the Wii U wasn't being used. So now, with Miiverse still not being used, if Nintendo does bring back messaging to your friends, it would make sense to bring back Miiverse, because Miiverse was really cool. You could talk to your friends, you could draw pictures on the touchscreen. Obviously, the Switch has a touchscreen, right? And send them messages. You can give little in-game hints in games like Shovel Knight, for example. That was really fun. All kinds of fun stuff you could do with Miiverse. I think everyone really loved Miiverse, right? Let me know in the chat if you guys liked Miiverse. But Miiverse was probably one of the best things about the Wii U, despite it being a slow interface. They did upgrade it as time went on with firmware updates, but the Miiverse was really fun. If it was a little bit smoother and faster, which they did make it better later on, it would have been basically perfect, because it's just a really nice way to interact with people on in the Nintendo community. And you can make new friends. I even made some friends on there that I was temporary with. Obviously, I don't use it anymore, so I lost track of those people. But it was a lot of fun having Miiverse. So I do hope they bring it back, or at least some form of it. It doesn't have to be Miiverse, just some messaging app. But the job factually said, guys, that experience working with Miiverse. So like they're requiring to work with it, basically. So is it coming back? We will wait and see. And then we had this rumor come out about this new Nintendo Switch using a custom Volta graphics SOC, basically. And that was the big news of the week for the Nintendo stuff, because of the funny reaction that fans had at first, because of the way it was reported didn't do it any favors, really. And because Volta is actually quite a bit more powerful than what is used in the Tegra X1 processor. But when people see the headlines, not a major performance boost and no 4K support, they wrote it off and said, "Oh, this is going to be a terrible upgrade." But they didn't read basically what this chip was about. So that was interesting that took place like that. And if you actually look at what Volta can do, it's really interesting. And another piece of confusion that took place from that article as well is that people assumed that it was going to be the Xavier SoC that they would be using. But the rumor never said anything about Xavier. So Xavier and Volta are two different things. So Xavier, the chip that Nvidia uses, is a module, basically, or part of a module, and the Xavier SoC uses the Volta GPU architecture as part of it. It's not it's not the same, one and the same type of thing. It's two separate things. So I think there's some confusion there. And so what I figured what we'll do is that we could watch a quick video explaining to you guys what Xavier is. It's only about a minute long. So let's take a look at this really quick, okay? That's the specs picture right there. So Let's take a look at this. I think this is it right here.
This is the Jetson Xavier module by itself, a complete AI computer for autonomous machines. It has the performance of a high-end GPU workstation in under 30 watts, capable of more than 30 trillion operations per second for deep learning and computer vision tasks. It can operate at 10, 15, or 30 watts, and Jetson Xavier delivers more than 10 times the energy efficiency, more than 20 times the performance of its predecessor, Jetson TX2. If you've used Jetson before, this will all feel very familiar, and you'll be up and running with AI application development in no time. If you're new to Jetson, the process is straightforward. As with any Jetson dev kit, your first action is to hook it up, download the latest Jetpack installer to your host PC, follow the instructions to update your dev kit, and you're ready to go. This is the Jetson Xavier Developer Kit, the fastest, most powerful way to start developing the next wave of robots, drones, and other autonomous machines.
Okay, so that gives you an idea of what Xavier is all about. You see, they're really focused on deep learning with robotic development with Xavier. It's in the Jetson. So it's a different thing there, okay? So Xavier, that whole chip and everything, yes, it can run at 10 watts, 15 watts, 30 watts, but that entire module is not designed to be made for a something to use on a mobile device. You know, it's not really made for that. So developers have been using that to do things with deep learning and AI for robotics. And of course, driverless cars and things like that. And NVIDIA is really, really interested in doing things with robotics and advanced AI. You know, basically artificial intelligence in the real world with robotics is really cool, but not necessarily with gaming. So there's some conflicting things that are going on with thinking you got to separate Xavier and Volta, because Volta is the graphics IP, Xavier is the deep learning module that developers are using for robotics. So as long as we're clear on that difference, maybe people can understand a little bit better about this rumor, because a lot of people were saying, well, Volta and Xavier are the exact same thing, but they're not. So we got to make that clear. And Volta is used in supercomputers. It's been used in the Titan 5 enthusiast GPU. It's the difference between Volta and like the Tegra X1, you know, Maxwell architecture, is that Volta has tensor cores in it. And tensor cores are like their deep learning processors they have in the GPU. Like Volta still uses CUDA cores, but it also uses tensor cores along with it. I did some research and looking into that architecture, and they really want to focus it on this deep learning, machine learning stuff. So there's some question here about that rumor because of that. Not only because the information is different a little bit, it's off by a few months for their timing of the release for this new Switch compared to Digitimes, Wall Street Journal, and Circuit Total, but also the technology of it is a little bit questionable because of what NVIDIA is using Volta for is not for gaming, it's for robotics. So it's kind of, when you look at the information, it's kind of a little bit questionable there. And usually when these companies like Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony, they're looking for a new console, they want to look at something kind of like that semi-custom. And semi-custom meaning like there's already a chip that a certain company already has made, and then they want to customize that chip in the way that they want it, and then release it as a next generation console or an upgrade to a console, for example. If NVIDIA actually made a custom chip for Nintendo with Volta architecture, they would have to actually make it 100% custom, not just semi-custom, because if you look at that Xavier SOC, I had it up there a second ago. See that right there? This is the Xavier, and you can see in the diagram there, it's Volta. The Volta GPU is part of it. Okay, so but there's so much machine learning that Nintendo wouldn't necessarily need to have something like that in a Switch Pro or upgraded Switch, because they want something focused on gaming. And yes, it's true that next generation is going to be having advanced AI, but that doesn't necessarily mean advanced machine learning. So there's a difference there between machine learning with robotics and using AI for that, and there's a difference between gaming AI, which having more intelligent, game interaction in your next generation games, having a more intelligent, basically AI you interact with, more better programmable AI. It's a little bit different there than using robotics. Yes, it's cool, and yes, it could help with gaming, but does Nintendo want that much AI and that much deep learning in a new, more powerful Switch that is supposed to be like what some people consider just a Switch Pro? It seems kind of unlikely when you think about it in that way. So it's just something to think about, guys. I'm not dismissing it or anything like that, but as far as them using the actual Xavier SOC, I highly doubt they would do that because they would have to completely rework it. And can you imagine how much that would cost Nintendo to fund a development like that? I believe that Xavier, correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but I believe it costs, funny enough, they just announced the Jetson Xavier NX, which is $400. And I believe the original Xavier module is $600, like $599. And that's to developers. So they would need to invest quite a bit of money and rework that entire module and rework the Xavier SoC if they want to actually use that chip for Nintendo. And again, we're just discussing here. We're not dismissing anything. That's why I showed everything like that in the intro. But again, though, that rumor said Volta SOC. So it didn't say Xavier SOC. It didn't say custom Xavier either. So now that we can separate those two, it makes more sense. Graphics IP is one thing. So, but Xavier SOC, I don't quite see that happening because Tegra X1, for example, was designed with a mobile aspect in mind. It was designed for phones. It was designed for tablets. This Xavier SoC was not designed in that way. Henceforth, it would need to be 100% remade and customized for Nintendo to even use. So Volta GPU architecture in a different chip, would obviously make more sense and be customized in that aspect if they were to use Volta in that sense, even though Volta has tensor cores for deep learning. So does Nintendo want that? I don't know. Do they? You know what I mean? It's kind of, if you're upgrading from the current Switch to that, what do you need all that advanced deep learning for is my question. Not dismissing it though. So then you have these other companies, Qualcomm, with the Snapdragon 865, and you have Imaginations Tech. Now, if you look at the amount of net worth that the Imaginations Technologies is worth compared to Nvidia, they're worth like a few $100 million as their entire company, and they just signed a deal with Apple to provide Apple's next GPU for their upcoming iPhones, I believe at the end of 2020 this year. And they can accomplish 2 teraflops in their mobile chip already in such a small company. Now, you take Nvidia, what are they worth? Like almost $200 billion or something like that, like 150 or something. I know they lost some money, but Nvidia, they want to make money. So if the investment's not there with Nintendo, as far as this thing is going, Nintendo may go somewhere else and get something to work with them, even though they could be using, possibly, like I said, the rumor is kind of iffy. We'll talk more about that as well, but they could be using maybe Volta graphics IP for a different type of chip module, different CPU, for example, to run ports coming up. So we have to wait and see about that. But for a company like that, that's worth just barely a tenth of what Nvidia is worth, and they already have technology that can do the same thing, if not better, already. NVIDIA is not showing anything publicly that I know of that is made for a mobile aspect, made for a custom-made chip, or made for phones, made for tablets. All they're doing is continuing to release the Tegra X1 processor over and over and over again for their NVIDIA Shield TV. They just released the X1 Plus, which is a 25% increase in performance, which is not very good. Then you have these other companies that are pushing 2 teraflops. So there's a disparity there to think about, guys. So this rumor came from this Korean site called Klein.net. And if you watch my video I did on this, it was discovered that I could find. Maybe you guys know more in the chat than I do. Let me know. I'm looking, but I couldn't find anything really that they leaked per se that was really legit. But like I looked back and I Googled it and everything. I Googled their name and I looked up mobile chip leak with Klein.net, and I couldn't find anything besides that flip phone from Samsung that somebody on their forums posted pictures of. But a few days before that, a different Japanese website actually leaked that device was coming anyway. So I don't know how much credibility that site really has, and that was 7 years ago. So I don't know. I never heard of that site before that rumor happened either. But I have heard of the Wall Street Journal, and I have heard of Digitimes, and I have heard of Mochizuki, and I have heard of Circuit Toto, who say something a little bit different for this new Switch coming in 2020. They say production will start at the end of first quarter 2020 to release at the midway point before PlayStation 5 comes out. Take a little drink here. Voice gets dry. I talk too much. But anyway, so that's the issue I have with this rumor, is that the information's a little iffy there, and the source is a little iffy. It's a rumor from them, right? Also, if you saw that Super Male Vitality Overdose, thank you, buddy. Thanks for coming by. If you his name is all in caps too, so hey, I can't miss it. That doesn't mean you need to change your name to all caps though. So what was I saying? Yeah. So anyway, the website there, Klein.net, is a little bit iffy. Okay, so I'll just say that. I'm not saying it's impossible or anything. But the way it was reported from Review Tech Wii USA, hey, welcome. The way it was reported from Digitimes, they actually had the actual makeup of the console, like the magnesium alloy body, and you could tell from the manufacturing, from I'm assuming from Foxconn, that the actual socket SOC was going to be a better CPU because of the size of it that they noticed in their reports. And then sure enough, Circuit Toto and Mochizuki from the Wall Street Journal backed up the Digitimes claims, report basically, and they didn't consider it a rumor. They considered it a report from them, even though technically, I know I've had this discussion with some of you guys on Twitter. Everything is a rumor until Nintendo officially announces something. We know that, but where there's smoke, there's fire, and this fire is pretty strong here for this to be coming this year. And on top of that, even though they got that kind of right maybe 7 years ago from that Korean website, their information doesn't line up with my information either, because my information lines up that I revealed here on this channel last year. It lines up almost perfectly, step in line with what Digitimes reported. So from my perspective, since I'm dealing with basically real information on my channel, that's pretty much all I've covered on my channel was real information, and then displaying it to you guys, showing it to you guys. And that's what my channel has pretty much always been about, is looking up cool information, like, oh wow, I found this cool thing, let me share it with you guys, and see what you think, and then you can speculate, and we speculate on it. And that's what I've been doing with this ever since the midway point of 2018, when I first could see right then that they were actually making a new console from the things that they were developing that weren't actually possible with the current Nintendo Switch. So they basically finished all that at the end of 2019, and that's what I was talking about in the December stream. People were saying, nah, they're not going to do nothing until 2022 or something like that. And I was like, no, there's no way. If you looked at the information that I was covering, you could see it for yourself. Obviously, you can have your own opinions, of course, but if you watched what I was covering, it seemed kind of obvious that they were about to enter production. Now, some issues, of course, come up with the whole, because I cover a lot of tech stuff on this channel. I totally understand that a lot of this information just doesn't get understood very clearly, and it's not your fault. It's nobody's fault. It's just because there's a lot of information that goes on, a lot of things I discuss about tech. I got to do a lot of information on these things myself before I do a video about it. That's why I always leave links in the description for you guys so you can go look at the information yourself, because if I'm not making things up here, is what I'm trying to say. I always have to make sure I'm doubly sure what I'm posting is accurate, because I know it's you got to be as accurate as possible. I mean, I'm not going to always be 100% correct on stuff. I do make mistakes, whatever, but you can always look at the links for yourself in my descriptions of my videos, and you can verify the things that I talk about. But I know it's a lot of tech-focused stuff, so a lot of things that are discussed may just not get understood by some of the audience, which is okay. Point is, they're starting production from what I could tell in late 2019, through them hiring that final software engineer to do debugging of the operating system. That's usually the very end of consoles development for the software, and then after that it enters into production. So that's why it lines up perfectly with my information, Digitimes, Circuit Toto, Mochizuki, Wall Street Journal. It all connects and all comes together to form basically that we're having a console that's going to be announced. When it's going to be announced, interesting. We have the PS5 is probably going to be announced pretty soon here, maybe in the next 2 weeks. Some people think, or maybe next 10 days. February 5th is one date that's been flying around, rumor. But David Jaffe, I think his name is, a developer on Twitter, said that the PS5 would be revealed in less than 4 weeks. And he said that back on January 16th of this year, obviously. And so less than 4 weeks would be probably around February 6th, February 5th, somewhere around there. So we'll wait and see what happens there. But if Nintendo was looking to announce this new console, they would either do it before or after the PS5 is revealed. So it's not looking like they might do anything in January after all, because they've been dead silent. Maybe they'll announce something next week and say, hey, Nintendo Direct on the 28th or 29th. But if they don't, then chances are they're going to wait until PlayStation fully reveals their PlayStation 5 to see everything they got, whatever secrets they're holding behind closed doors. Rumor is also that you will be able to pre-order the PS5 after that presentation from Sony. That's been going around online, that you could, I saw it from a few people that they heard that you could be pre-order the PS5 after they reveal it next month, which would be interesting, right? Because then you got people actually putting their money down officially for that console. Then you got the final prices, final SKUs. Maybe they have a couple different SKUs, and who knows what else, right? People are going to be putting their money down in February for the PlayStation 5, okay? So Nintendo, after they see that, I could definitely see them announcing this new Switch pretty quickly after that, and to get eyes on them, to get gamers to put their money down on their console that's coming, because you want to stay in the eyes of the gamers basically in the industry. And people already started pre-ordering. Okay, well, as far as I know, they haven't officially started pre-orders yet for the PlayStation 5. Maybe some other websites are doing pre-orders because they want to get a jump on what's going on. But official pre-orders haven't started yet. I know that for a fact. So be careful if you pre-order from someone who hasn't officially, when Sony hasn't announced that pre-orders have started yet. So be careful with that, because they could be tricking you with something. I always wait for the actual official announcements from these companies before to pre-order. That's just the smart thing to do. So it's pretty interesting. Hello from Brazil. Okay. Bait Papo Nintendo, welcome from Brazil. This hopefully, it's around 11:34 UK time, so most people are still awake today. So so I hope you guys understand a little bit about Volta now, and why I'm a little bit doubtful on that Nintendo would use it. I'm also a little bit doubtful on that site who posted that rumor, because their reputation is kind of it doesn't. I'm not saying they don't have a bad reputation or anything. I'm just saying that they don't really have much of any reputation at all. I never even heard of this site before. I heard of that rumor. It doesn't mean that they're wrong. It's just that there's no reputation there really to go by. Some vague information they got right 7 years ago versus reports from more credible people like Wall Street Journal, Digitimes, and these other guys. So I'm just saying, I have my doubts about that site that rumored that, and also I have my doubts about them using Volta, because it just seems like a lot of extra work for Nintendo to go through and ask Nvidia to try to 100% customize a different chip, because I really don't think they'll be using an Xavier SOC, because it wasn't designed for a mobile form factor. It just wasn't. And say for example they use an Xavier. Let's just say, I'm not going to dismiss that 100% either, of course, but say they use Xavier SOC as is, like a stock chip that wasn't designed with mobile products in mind. They would have to downclock that quite a bit, because the lowest it runs at is 10 watts, like what was said, and they got to keep downclocking that, and then it becomes a superficial upgrade from the original Switch. Plus all this deep learning and Volta in it, and all these extra, tensor cores in there with CUDA cores and all this extra stuff in there. There would be no point of using that chip if they're just going to have to downclock it to get it to run in a portable form factor. And Nintendo would be better off using something else that would be more form-fitting for a mobile processor, which also, like I said, leads to the conclusion I have that I'm leaning more towards them not using something that's Xavier based in that SoC. And if they are going to use Volta, they would have to be something else. They would put the graphics IP in a different type of chip to use that, because like we brought out, Snapdragon and all these other companies have mobile form factors at 7 nanometers that you could customize and put a graphics IP in there that may be different from what they're using, maybe Volta, maybe something else, but it doesn't have to be necessarily the shell. Basically, the SoC is a shell, right? The form of it that goes into the motherboard, and they put it together. You have your console. They have to customize that in order to get what they want out of it. If you're a console developer, a console maker, like, oh, this company has this company has that. We want to put it together and make our chip from that. And this will work for us, Nintendo or Sony or Microsoft, and this will work for us for what our needs as a business is. You have something that can do 8 cores, whatever megahertz or gigahertz. Oh, you have a GPU that works for us. Let's put those together and make our own custom chip. That's basically what a lot of these companies are doing. Like even Microsoft said when they revealed the Surface Pro X, they said it was a custom chip. Custom graphics that they were using. They didn't reveal what they were using on there, but it may have been something AMD based in conjunction with their Qualcomm CPU that they were using. Even though because Microsoft has that partnership with AMD, they use AMD for everything, including their laptops. But it wasn't 100% confirmed that what graphics IP they were using for the Surface Pro X to get 2 teraflops of performance, right? They're using the latest and greatest Snapdragon for the CPU aspect, which is not AMD, but it was a custom graphics IP to get 2 teraflops. So it's interesting. They could have been using something AMD based to get those graphics there, because I don't think Snapdragon currently can do 2 teraflops, at least not that I know of. The 865 is really, really good, but I haven't heard any specs for it exactly. And as far as the Parker chip is concerned, the Tegra X2 processor, again, that is basically what you get, almost the same type of performance you would get from the Tegra X1 Plus processor that NVIDIA is already using in the NVIDIA Shield TV. You would get maybe 25 to 50% more performance, something like that, with the Tegra X2 Parker chip. So I don't know if Nintendo would use that either. And plus, there's lots of things to consider as well as the price. I talked about this at the end of that video I did about the Volta chip, is that if Nintendo's charging $399 for this console in 2020, you have to think about the advances that Nintendo has made in previous consoles in comparison to their other ones. Like the new 3DS was about 2.5 times more powerful than the original 3DS. And what did Nintendo charge for that console? They charged $199 at launch in February, and that was while the original 3DS still cost it was $169. So that's only $30 more expensive for the new 3DS, which had a better camera, which had better 3D eye tracking or whatever, and it also had a better screen, bigger screen, and I think it was brighter, and it had the increased horsepower on top of that, and they were only charging $30 more for that. So it was very interesting that they can get that much more performance and only charge $30 more for the new 3DS. Granted, it came out 4 years later, so the cost of that technology wasn't as expensive as it would have been in 2011. So basically, a new Switch at $399 would have to be a substantial upgrade for it to be worth it, okay? And that is exactly what's being floated around there, $399. And Nintendo doesn't like to drop their prices of their current hardware, obviously. They have no reason to. So the current Switch is selling for $299. It's selling great, right? The next generation consoles are coming around the bend, and they're going to be charging most likely $500 for those consoles. So it does make sense that Nintendo would release something that's more powerful and make it worth it to purchase. Magnesium alloy body, the IGZO display, more powerful chip, obviously. The Volta processor, if they did use that, could theoretically give Nintendo 3 to 4 times more performance than the current Nintendo Switch. And as long as they did something like a 7nm custom chip on it, they could probably get 4 times the performance from that than it would than the current Switch, which would easily give you 1080p 60 frames per second on definitely the current Switch games, and even get you a lot more ports as well. So there's that to consider. And that's the price that has been floating around for quite a long time. It was even rumored back in 2018 they would charge $399. As long as it's good enough or value is there, I know that people will easily spend $399. If they're willing to spend $499 for the PlayStation 5, because wow, it's such a huge upgrade, that kind of thing, or the Xbox Series X, they're obviously, if you're going to upgrade the Switch, you'll spend $399 as long as Nintendo shows that it's worth it. All right. So what are you guys saying in the chat? Yeah, Roman B. So in a guess estimate, where will Volta be? PS4-ish? Yeah, that's where the performance level would be, around PS4-ish. Again, though, architecture, newer, brand new chip versus 2013 technology, teraflops. You can't really say, 1.5 teraflops or something like that is equal to the 1.5 teraflops of 2013 and 2020. It doesn't work that way. There's IPC improvements, so you get more for your buck, basically, more performance for your flop than you would in 2013. There's just the technology has really improved a lot. So I guess there's a rumor going on that Street Fighter V is coming to Switch. Everyone keeps saying it. I haven't looked into that. So that's a PS4 exclusive, last I heard. So if it is, great. The game came out 4 years ago, I believe. I think early 2016. I remember the Switch doesn't even have Street Fighter 4. Much less Street Fighter V, of course. But Street Fighter 4 was actually on the 3DS as a launch game. Street Fighter 4 3D edition. You remember that? I actually bought that on launch day. So, if that game comes to Nintendo, great. I already have it on PlayStation 4. I don't play it anymore. So, if it comes to Switch, great. I'm more of a fan of the original Street Fighter games, like Street Fighter 2 Turbo and Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Those are my favorites. Street Fighter V is a great game, but I'm kind of done with that game right now. But yeah, if you guys are excited for that, if it's true, great. All right. Paint Fat Purple. Hey, Dave, will Nintendo reveal it before the end of the fiscal year or after March 31st? I'm thinking they'll reveal it maybe before the end of the fiscal year, just because of what PlayStation is possibly going to be doing here in February. And people are going to be putting their money down on PlayStation for pre-orders right away there, from what the rumors suggest. So Nintendo may want to announce this and get the ball rolling for their own pre-orders for this console sooner rather than later. And everyone that I've seen online who is for a upgraded Nintendo Switch, everyone seems to want this thing right away. So that's what you want. You want to get the console out sooner rather than later. You don't want to wait too long, and you want to get people's eyes on your device, get your money from those consumers, obviously, and put pre-orders down on it so you can gear up for the coming battle. Not necessarily with Nintendo against Sony and Microsoft, but like we talked about before, you want eyes on you as a company. So you're all in. We're all into playing video games. So one company gets one game, one company releases something that's way more impressive than what you're doing, or has a new nice looking toy, that gamers want to buy. You as a company, you want to provide that something new yourself to get those consumers looking at your devices and not theirs, which is exactly why all these companies always release their products the same time every year. All these cell phone providers, graphics cards, whenever you see a new AMD graphics card, you see an Nvidia graphics card announced soon after. I think we just had that, the Nvidia Super Editions. They announced their prices for them. Then AMD slashed their prices of their new GPUs like the day after. So even though they're not necessarily competing for the high end, AMD versus Nvidia for PC, they still had to adjust their prices because Nvidia had a certain price level that was too low for them. So yeah. All right. Bait Papo Nintendo, thanks for the 5 peso super chat. I don't know what that is. Could you tell us the difference between Xavier and Volta? I did actually explain that earlier in the live stream. I don't think I'm going to go all the way back into that again. Go ahead and rewind the video for that. But basically, what Xavier is the deep learning SOC that NVIDIA has. Volta is part of the SOC as the GPU of it, okay? So Volta and Xavier are two different things. So it's like using the Maxwell GPU of the Tegra X1 processor, taking that out, that is just the GPU of it. I forgot the name. It's a Maxwell GPU that they're using in the Tegra X1. So taking the Volta GPU out of the Xavier SoC would be what they could use for a custom-built chip that was based around Volta, and they would basically take out the Xavier part of it because maybe they don't want all that extra deep learning and and maybe it's not what they want, as far as 12 nanometers is what Xavier is versus 7 nanometers, which is what everyone is using now. People just are not using 12 nanometers anymore for their devices. Manufacturing is full speed ahead on 7 nanometers for basically all these companies now. So if Nintendo were to use a custom Volta GPU in a chip, most likely they would want to use 7 nanometers, which would pretty much make the Xavier SoC obsolete and for them not to use that. So I hope that makes sense. All right. Entertainment vending. Do you think the new Switch will have exclusive virtual console games? The old Switch will not. Hey, that's a good point. Thanks for the question. Remember the new 3DS? New 3DS had... thanks for coming by, the One Bad Gamer. Remember new 3DS had exclusive SNES games, virtual console. The entire console was exclusive to the new 3DS, the entire SNES library. So Nintendo likes to do that. People talk about segregating the user base, but they do that on purpose themselves because they want to sell new consoles, basically. They want to drive people to buy their new latest and greatest machine. When the new 3DS released, remember this, right? It was $199. So they originally released the 3DS for $249, which is way too high. They had to drop the price by $80 really quickly because it wasn't selling. New 3DS was an upgrade, but since it was an upgrade, that was a good enough upgrade, and they charged $30 more for that for $199. I think quite frankly, the reason why they had exclusive games on that new 3DS and exclusive virtual console games is because they wanted you to spend $199, not $169. Because if you multiply that number by 10 million consoles sold, look at how much more money Nintendo's making from you buying their more expensive console. So most likely you'll be seeing quite a few different exclusive games on this new, more powerful Switch. quite possibly even exclusive virtual console games. Maybe they'll put GameCube or something on the new Switch only, and they'll say, "Oh, the old Switch just can't, handle the." They may not say that. They just won't release it on the old Switch, and they have N64 on the old Switch, GameCube, N64, and whatnot. Maybe even the Wii virtual console. I'm just saying here on this new Switch, and people will buy it. And I don't think anybody complained about the new 3DS having just a virtual console for the SNES on it that I can recall. They just bought the new system and enjoyed it because they got that thing running on the original 3DS. They got the virtual console of the SNES running on the original 3DS by hacking it. So Nintendo never really said it couldn't really run it, so they just didn't put it on there because they want to sell you a more expensive item, and it worked. People bought it. So at the end of the day, Nintendo wants to make more money per hardware sold. So in order to do that, they have to release a more expensive product that is worth buying, and they'll give you more features with that product, so you'll put your money down on it. It's classic business move. And life is dank. Labo is meh. I want VR that doesn't get wet easily. Yeah. I don't know what they did with Labo there. It seemed like a diversion. Maybe they were trying to strike gold with the expanded user base, but Labo was pretty much a flop, pretty much, in my opinion. As far as compared to what they wanted it to be. For what Nintendo was talking about Labo to be, it was a flop. Super Male Vitality Overdose. The Switch Pro will be used to run the U.S. Space Force rocket launchers. Yes, it will. Guaranteed. Okay. Yeah, the GameCube stuff. I'm just using that as example of what they could do for a virtual console on this new Switch. Basically, putting stuff on there that you would want that this current Switch doesn't have is the point, really. That's exactly what they did on the new 3DS, and it worked very well. Boyto, is that how you say your name? I don't know. Hey Dave, could we be seeing 3DS games on the new Switch? I don't know, to be honest with you. If they don't want the 3DS to die, maybe we will. I mean, they put the DS games, I believe, on the Wii U, right? So anything's possible. Aiden King, thanks for stopping by if you're leaving. So that's kind of where it is there. So you have this information going on about Volta. So I think after examining that closely, you could see that yes, it's theoretically possible. Will Nintendo actually use it? We'll have to wait and see because it would have to be a really expensive customized chip for Nintendo to go that far with Nvidia to use it. So for them, and they have to make it from scratch basically. So we'll have to wait and see. All right, well, let me scroll up here into the chat and see what questions you guys have. Okay. Why would it be powerful Aura? Why would it be Volta as opposed to one of NVIDIA's mainstream graphics architectures like Pascal, Turing, or Ampere? Yeah, exactly. So Maxwell, Pascal, Volta, and then Turing. So Volta wasn't used in any graphics cards that you could purchase as a gamer, and it wasn't used in mobile devices either. So they use Volta basically for their deep learning stuff. That's why it's a good question. So yes, it's a really good graphics architecture, but since NVIDIA is targeting it for deep learning and machines, AI, robotics, I have my doubts they will be using that, to be honest with you. I'm not saying that it's not possible, though. Hey, Suzanne, thanks for coming by. Seasons of Heaven, yeah, but it probably is not happening. The game's probably not happening. All these companies need money for funding, so anything's possible. But they probably needed money to fund the game. From what I heard from it, they didn't have enough support to fund their game, so it may not be happening. I'm not saying it's not happening for sure, though. I'm just saying it may not. So don't cry. Facts kill opinions. Considering Cyberpunk was delayed because it was struggling to run on current hardware, meaning PS4, Xbox One, that means Switch Pro has to be at least between PS4 and PS4 Pro cause. Well, not necessarily. I don't know. Was that confirmed by the developer that it wasn't running well on those consoles, or was that just a rumor? Because they had that from the start. They had that game coming to current gen consoles from the beginning when they announced it. So I don't know. I don't know about that. There's things they can do, obviously, to make it run on different platforms. Okay, so we'll wait and see about Cyberpunk. Yeah, it was confirmed. Okay. So the game's not coming out until September, so we'll see. 1 second. Okay. Alrighty. So, what would you spend on a new Nintendo Switch, and what would it have to be the reason for you to spend $399 on this new, more powerful Switch coming in 2020? Let me know in the chat what you would spend, willing to be to put your money down for this console. I'm curious what you guys would spend on it. I think $399 is a good price, but would I be willing to spend even more than that? Personally, I would actually be willing to spend more than just $399 if it's good enough. But that's me because I'm an enthusiast. I get all the latest and greatest toys. All right, so deluxe dock could be $200, $399, $450, $399, 1440p. Super Mario Vitality Overdose, $550 max. Why not just make it $600? 1080p, no bezels, $400, $500 depending on release date. I just want 1080p 60 frames, $275 UK pounds. More third-party games, $400, yes. $449 to $525 ish. That's interesting. $450. All right. So some of you guys are willing to spend over $400 to $500 for this thing. Now, so realistically, so obviously the rumor price is $399, and it makes sense for $399 as like a in-between levelness, for the consumer. They see that it's a big enough upgrade. They also see it's not as expensive as a PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, which are most likely going to be $499 and above that price. So as long as Nintendo shows people, their fans, that it's a big enough upgrade, because they're leaving a lot of things out of this current Switch still. There's no Netflix even. People were complaining about, obviously, the online doesn't work very well. There's no messaging your friends still. Nintendo has not added these very simple things. Like, can you believe how simple is it to add simple. It's very simple, basically, to add a messenger app to the Nintendo Switch. It's extremely simple. You could probably get a guy to do that in like a month. Just put Discord on there, put an app on there that does messaging your friends. Do you really think Nintendo is not capable of putting a messaging app on the Nintendo Switch? Of course they are. Just like in the video I brought out, they're hiring people to work on a brand new network infrastructure. So it looks like they're getting ready to roll out a huge online update with messaging your friends soon. And it lines up right in the time frame for releasing a new console, from what is reported. So I do think this new Switch will have messaging your friends with Miiverse, possibly, if it comes back. Online notifications, party chat, voice chat, all those things. I think they will have that. They're putting it off for this new Switch for a selling point for you guys to buy it. It's they've been doing this for years with every single upgraded console they've released. They've always added something that, okay, I gotta buy it. You did this and you didn't do this in the other console. Now I gotta buy it. Oh, darn it, And people usually just go ahead and buy it. So Life is Dank. Will that Miiverse be on current Switch as an app? I don't know. I hope so. That would be kind of mean if they didn't put it on the original Switch. But I could understand if they didn't. They may come up with some fake excuse like the Switch can't run it or something. But they should put that thing on the original Switch. That would only be fair. They could at least put messaging your friends on the original Switch, right? Manny Paul, so you're saying that's their business model? Pretty much. I mean, look at their upgraded consoles. Look at their upgraded handhelds. They've always added something the previous one couldn't do in order for you to buy it. Or they added different design of the console, like the DS Lite. Basically the same processor, but it looked way better. It was, I believe it was even less expensive too. Yeah, if I remember correctly, back in 2005, 2006 when it came out. And it was a way sleeker, nicer design than DS Fat. People all flocked to that, and that thing was selling like crazy. I think the most DS console sold was a DS Lite version. The Fat version was discontinued, and people stopped buying that, obviously. But new 3DS, 3DS XL, 2DS, 2DS XL, they always change something about those consoles just enough to get people to buy it, to basically target a different demographic of people. The 2DS was targeting a younger demographic for taking out the 3D. Then they released a beefed up version of the new 3DS and the 2DS form factor in the XL version. So it's just they always do this. They've always done it. C4 1010 Omega. Do you think there will be an internet browser? That would be nice. Again, all these things would be nice to have. Honestly, they should have these things because it's really easy to do. Tablets all have internet browsers in there. You know, if this new Switch has the capability of just running apps, you got to, and it's more powerful to run games at 1080p 60 frames. You got to think it'd have the ability to have apps as well. It's up to Nintendo though to allow it. So you know what I mean? That's just common sense. The Wii U had an internet browser. None of these things mean that are going to contribute necessarily to it selling out or something at the stores. Like, you're not going to go to the store and see this more powerful Switch and buy it because it has Netflix on it. You're not going to buy it because it has, messaging your friends and having a better online experience would be one reason, yes. But that's affecting your game enjoyment, really, if you're able to message your friends and things like that. But Netflix, everyone already has Netflix, internet browser, everyone has a cell phone. So those things aren't necessarily going to affect sales of this new Switch coming this year. What will affect sales, though, is how powerful it is. Because you look at the response online from people when they saw that headline from the website saying it wouldn't be a massive performance upgrade and it won't have 4K support, even though I don't buy that for one bit, because the specs of Volta easily support 4K, no problem. Even 4K 60 frames. If we look at that, go look at this again here. See that? This isn't the full picture, but basically this chip and the Volta can support 4K, no problem. It's not even an issue. And the Tegra X1 processor supports 4K as well. And that came out in 2015. So it's not about rendering 4K in games. It's just about displaying it on your TV. That's all people want, really. They want upscale to your TV. The games will look a little bit less blurry if it can upscale to 4K. Doesn't mean that it will be rendering the games at 4K or anything like that. No. Just like the Xbox One S can upscale games to 4K on your TV, the system is hardly not even more powerful than the original Xbox One. I think it's just slightly more powerful, like a hair. Like, I think it's like 10% more powerful or 15%. You don't notice it in games, but it can upscale and do HDR and 4K on your TVs. So something like that for this more powerful Switch would be easy. Not even an issue at all. Not an issue at all. Super easy. Okay. Yeah, NVIDIA Shield does 4K. It's just a matter of Nintendo could actually probably have had this current Switch upscale to 4K as well if they really wanted it to. It doesn't really take. It's more like it's like encoding stuff. It doesn't really take a lot of processing power to do that. So it's not hard. Yeah, and your Omega, I'll just call you Omega. Yeah, your TV already upscales your content to 4K. So your Nintendo Switch that you plug into your TV, 4K TV, your TV itself will already upscale it to 4K, but the output coming from the Nintendo Switch is not 4K upscaled. Like the output is not 4K. That's the issue there. So it does cause some more blurriness when you connect it to your TV than it would if you can just set your console to 4K output as far as the actual display, not the actual rendering of the games is. It would make the games look more clean on your 4K TV, if that makes sense. I hope it does. Just use one of your consoles. Like let's see, if you have a PlayStation 4 Pro, this is the same thing. You can set your console to 1080p output from PlayStation 4 Pro, and in the menu, plug it into your 4K TV, and you'll see the difference. It looks a little bit more blurry. So it does help clean up the image. Not necessarily the graphics being rendering in 4K. No, it just makes it look a little bit more clean. That's all. It's just something that's annoying, really, when you think about it. It should be there already in the current Switch. Just to have a 4K upscaler is not hard. It's easy. It doesn't take much at all. So that's where we're going here. So Nintendo should announce this thing before E3 is my guess, possibly in their before they do their fiscal year stuff, because they want to let investors know about this console, obviously. So before March 31st, I believe one of you in the chat asked if they would do that before March 31st. That makes sense to me. If they're going to be starting production at the end of Q1 of this year, that makes sense to announce it around that time as well, right? If not before. They could even announce it in February because of what's going on with Sony. I talked about this in my last live stream a little bit too. Those mobile phone providers, they release their new phones every year as well because they're looking for people to buy their products because hey, the big boys are releasing their new products. We're going to release our new products as well. Like I gave an example of Motorola, for example, or HTC. Some of these companies have lower prices devices than iPhone and Samsung Galaxy to reach a lower price point. Doesn't necessarily mean they're not in competition. They still are. They're just offering a quality device at a lower price to get people who don't want to spend $1,000 on the newest Galaxy or newest iPhone. They still, in fact, release their new phones also at the same time for $200, $300 because they want those customers who are searching online looking for a new device to use every single year. There's always somebody. Same exact thing applies for a brand new console generation. PlayStation and Xbox are releasing their new consoles this year, confirmed. So Nintendo likewise will want to have their new console release as well to get people who are looking to spend their money on a new console who may not want to spend $500, may not want to spend $600. They may be looking at something that's upgraded from the Switch already in the first place. This makes perfect sense in 2020 for them to do that for all those reasons. The Switch could use an upgrade. It could use better frame rates while docked. It could use less blurry graphics when you're playing from its own games already. Even regardless if it gets AAA third-party support, its own games still could benefit from a performance upgrade already. And then you add this magnesium alloy body that would prevent it from breaking, overheating, warping. I talked about that in my last video I uploaded. I did 2 videos Thursday night talking about the supplemental computing device because you guys always been asking about this. You guys in the chat are saying that here too. Look at my video, Boston Samus, about that for the SCD. Yes, it's theoretically possible Nintendo can do that with this new Switch. But since it was reported that they're using a magnesium alloy body, they could actually overclock whatever chip they're using more so and be safe with that chip being overclocked more so than they would be in the current Nintendo Switch with its plastic, because magnesium alloy really protects the chips and keeps it insulated and keeps the heat at a certain level. They could get away with overclocking a chip like that with that magnesium alloy body more so, and theoretically give a boost of performance on your TV without having necessarily the need to have an extra graphics GPU. Granted, yes, it is possible, and granted, yes, an SCD would theoretically give even more performance than what an overclock would for your chip. But since it's a portable system and you want to dock it, undock it, dock it, undock it, having the graphics have to change like that so drastically by having such a huge, possibly double or triple the performance in the GPU extension that plugs into it, there's variables that could cause issues that we're not aware of yet. Maybe there's corruption, graphics corruption that takes place by you unplugging in and plugging it in all the time. The system may have glitches or something like that. It's much easier for them to overclock to a certain degree for this new Switch due to that magnesium alloy body being such a cool, quote unquote cool in many ways, to insulate it and to keep it durable from the heat and from breaking. It's just one of the best pieces of news from that report was them using a magnesium alloy body, because that brings so many different possibilities as far as them having different styles with it, just looking really sleek on top of it as well. Protection, you drop it, it's not going to break. Bending it, it won't crack. Heat, it won't overheat, meaning you plug it in, it overclocks, and you get increased performance and locked 1080p 60 frames on your TV instead of having it downscale and dynamic rest down to 720p on certain games. Things like that. They may not need an SCD because of those reasons, just making a better, smarter, more efficient new Nintendo Switch, more powerful Switch this year. Then, as Nintendo likes to do, as we talked about, they love to release these new consoles, these upgrades. So then maybe in 2023, 2024, they release another upgraded Switch that quite possibly is 5 nanometers or 3 nanometers, whatever nanometers they got later in the future. And then you can overclock it even more. They could use a slightly improved chip, things like that. They like to do that a lot. They like to release so many different iterations of their consoles that it's kind of, I could see them doing that more so than releasing an external graphics card at this point. Back when the NX was being talked about, they had the supplemental computing device patent that's still out there. So like I said, they can still use something like that. That's true. But that patent was all about multiple things. It was about using a network. It's about networking multiple consoles together, using it as like your online network locally, and being able to, I think it had even some streaming things about it as well. The patent was crazy. But yeah, take a look at my video about it on this channel. It wasn't just increasing the graphics. It was about local networking as well with your friends, using all kinds of different things. Like I believe they had, what was it? What was it? Spot Pass, Street Pass, something like that. They were going to be using as well, networking with your friends back then. It was a very transitional period for Nintendo. The failure of the Wii U led to Nintendo obviously thinking about a lot of different ideas for what they could do with the NX. I know that idea was a big one that hasn't come to fruition yet. And since the Switch is a handheld device, it makes more sense at this point for them to continue to release iterations of the Switch and upgrading the processor that way. And I never even thought about it myself. I never even thought about them using magnesium alloy in their console. I never even considered that because Nintendo has always used like hard plastic. So them using magnesium alloy prompted me to make that video because I could see them using better materials to just overclock their hardware that way and just release better versions of that as they go forward, get you to spend or get you to trade in or whatever you need to do, get you to spend another $300 consistently every few years, because they keep doing this, guys. You have to admit, look at Nintendo's release history of the 3DS. How many different models are there? Like 6, right? Like they keep releasing new refreshes of their hardware all the time. For the Nintendo Switch, they released a slight revision that just increased the battery life quite a bit. I mean, you could say that was not a slight revision, but performance in games really hasn't changed much from that. But the Switch Lite was a big change for it. Obviously, some people think for the worse, but it was a big change because it's handheld only. You can't dock it. So, that's just the beginning. So now you're going to have Nintendo release a more powerful Nintendo Switch, most likely this year, according to reports. So this is just what Nintendo does, and they've always done it. So I don't see that changing anytime soon. I think they're going to continue to release upgraded consoles as they go forward. Selling an expansion pack graphics card, that worked pretty well for the Nintendo 64, but it wasn't really a graphics card. It was just increasing the RAM, so the N64 could increase resolution in games to 480p or 480i at the time. It wasn't necessary. It was just more RAM to increase that. It wasn't necessarily a graphics card that Nintendo was using even back then. So it would be quite an interesting thing if they did that. I just don't think they will at this point, but we're not dismissing that either. That would be kind of interesting if they did release a SCD for this new Switch later down the line. But quite frankly, I think they'll just continue to release upgraded new hardware as they go, whichever way they want to choose to do it. Either small amounts of upgrades here and there. Oh, we changed this little thing here. Oh, now it can overclock even more. Maybe they use the same chip. Who knows? There's lots of different things they can do it. All thanks to that the possibilities of the magnesium alloy body that it brings. I think that's a fantastic move by Nintendo. All right, what are you guys talking about in the chat? I don't know what Waybird is, but sorry, you can't find the receiver for it. Yeah, the Waybird is the wireless GameCube controller that Nintendo had back in the day. What's up, YXBA? When the Switch came out, it had better gaming performance undocked than even the fastest iPad. Yeah, okay. Shane Kelly, welcome. Let me take a look at the chat, make sure I welcome you guys. Hey, Goat816, thanks for checking in. Yeah, I started over an hour ago. So yeah, thanks for coming. Yeah, I heard guys tell me about Street Fighter V on the Switch in the chat here, but is that confirmed or just a rumor? Because I don't know. I haven't seen anything about it. Like I said before, if it is coming to the Switch, great. If not, great, because I've already played it enough, like 4 years ago. So I also have Street Fighter 4 on my PC. I also have Street Fighter 4 on my 3DS as well. I bought that at launch day. Which Switch doesn't even have Street Fighter 4, which is weird. Remember what Capcom said? Capcom said that they were considering they would bring like other Street Fighter games if fans like beg for them. I think they said that just a few weeks ago. So yeah. So EB Games Canada tweeted about it. So I guess we'll see. Was it rated though? Retailers tweet a lot of things, so we'll have to wait and see. They also tweeted Red Dead Redemption 2 is coming to the Switch. That's a big one, right? So that's a big doozy if it's not true. Good morning, Samus 2400. I guess, what, are you in the UK or something? Morning, Dave. Yeah, so there's a lot of potential for, like we talked about in the last stream, AAA third-party support coming to this console as well. What's your most wanted AAA game that is not on the Switch that you would buy in a heartbeat if it was coming to the Switch? Let me know in the chat. It would not be Red Dead Redemption 2 for me because I'm not a huge fan of that game. It's a good game, but I wasn't a big fan of it. But for the Switch, I think I would like Sekiro because that's my game of the year from 2019. I would love it. Jedi Fallen Order I would love to have on the Switch. I would love to have the next Call of Duty on the Switch. Yeah, you guys are saying Nier Automata. That's a great game too. I would love to have that. Borderlands 3, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Dishonored, Cyberpunk, Resident Evil 2 Remake. Yeah, you see? Yeah, you guys reminded me of Monster Hunter World. That's a big one. The Switch has not had any brand new Monster Hunter games, guys. It's been on almost out for 3 years. Capcom definitely thought twice about investing into Nintendo after the 3DS Monster Hunter games, because look how much they sold for Monster Hunter on everyone else except for Nintendo. Over, what was it? What's the sales for Monster Hunter World? It's like 12 million or something like that worldwide. That's 3 times as much as what they sold on the 3DS for their exclusives for Monster Hunter. I think they sold like 4.5 million was the biggest one. Resident Evil 2 Remake, 64 gigabytes. Yeah, you know, that's another thing. Those 64 gigabyte cartridges are also coming this year. There's too much smoke. Resident Evil 3 Remake. Yeah, another one. Yeah. There's so many games. There's so many games that have not been coming to the Nintendo. Gears of War. Well, that'll be funny, huh? Ratchet and Clank. I think that's a PlayStation exclusive. I wouldn't expect any PlayStation exclusives to come to Nintendo, guys. But Final Fantasy VII Remake to this new Switch could be possible in 2021 after their exclusivity runs out, as long as the system can run it. But yeah. Suzanne Christ, don't crush me, Dave. Well, about what? Oh, new Ratchet and Clank. Well, PlayStation 5, right? We'll get probably a new Ratchet and Clank, I would imagine. I don't think it'll come to the Switch. That would be interesting, huh? Milky Hazard, if that's how you say your name. New exclusive Resident Evil game would be nice. Watch Dogs, Assassin's Creed, yeah, that's true. 64 gigabyte cartridges, though, that's a big one. As an option for developers, that would be nice, but will they actually do it? You've seen what they've done so far on the Switch, right? They're releasing the case of the game without the cartridge in it and saying, hey, here's your physical copy. It's just a download code. So will developers actually spend the money for a 64 gigabyte cartridge, or are those cartridges for Nintendo to use for their big games they got coming, like Metroid Prime 4? If you've been following me, what was it, January 2nd? I think the second day of the year, Metroid Prime 4, I released a new video on that. Development seems to be going well in the game. It looks like they could be releasing that at the end of 2021 as far as what I brought out in that video. If Nintendo has a 64 gigabyte cartridge, they may want to release a game like that that's huge, or on a big cartridge like that, because Nintendo obviously would be the one using that cartridge. They don't have to pay themselves for the cartridge because they get it already. So third-party developers, I don't know. Are they willing to spend that much money on these cartridges? They've proven they aren't willing to spend that much money. So depends on the price. Will it be cheap enough for them? We'll have to wait and see. But you got to hope to think they'll at least get to 32 gigabytes at some point. So yeah. Mother 3. Yeah, good luck with that one. Good luck with Mother 3. People have been... Well, what was that? With that rumor... That rumor was it Emily Rogers back, what was it, 2013 or 2014? So yeah, that game, if it's not coming 6 years by now, it's probably not going to come. But hey, Nintendo likes to do surprises. Maybe they'll just drop it and say, oh, maybe that's how they get you to buy the new Switch, guys. You want the new Switch? It comes exclusively with Mother 3 pre-installed in it. Would you buy it? That would be funny. Excite Truck 2, yeah. What's up? Roadside Affair, yeah. That would be fun. But wouldn't that be funny though if they did that? Yeah. This game you've been wanting for all these years, you heard about it, you know, hey, Metroid Prime Trilogy, wouldn't that be interesting if they said that too? If they brought Metroid Prime Trilogy exclusive to this new Switch? Ooh, I don't know. Would you guys be excited or upset? That's a good one, huh? That's a good question. Would you be excited or upset if they put Metroid Prime Trilogy exclusively on this new, more powerful Switch? I'm buying the console either way, so for me, I wouldn't mind. But I don't know. That's interesting. Interesting question. Also, would you be upset if they made Metroid Prime 4 exclusive for this new, more powerful Switch as well? Because they did restart development on it. It may not. It may be delayed again until 2022, and then it may not make any sense to release it on the current Switch. We'll have to wait and see. Boston Sam is sold. On which one? Metroid Prime Trilogy or Mother 3? Probably both, huh? You'd be excited. Okay. Some people will be excited. Some people will be upset. It all depends, right? Yeah, Metroid Prime 4 would make more sense than it would at that point, right? If it comes out that long. If they did do that, fans may be like, oh, darn it. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and buy the new Switch. I bet you, because if it is exclusively on the new Switch, it's probably going to look amazing. Like they upgraded it to a point where it looks super, super good. So just the excitement that would bring to Nintendo fans and Metroid Prime fans, I don't think fans would be complaining too much that it wasn't coming to the original Switch. If it looked way better than they were expecting, they'll be like, well, yeah, okay, I'm going to have to buy that new console now. We'll have to wait and see what they do. And yeah, I know Metroid doesn't sell the same, but I'm putting it out there as an example. Nintendo sees it as a big IP, obviously, or they wouldn't have done that message to fans about Metroid Prime 4 and been so serious about restarting development. Maybe they feel guilty about how they treated the Metroid series in the last few years with Federation Force and Metroid Other M. Because Metroid Prime will sell at least 2 million is my estimate. Because the original game I believe sold a few million on GameCube. So I do believe Metroid Prime 4, with all the hype it's gotten to, at least 2 million, if not more, on the Switch or this new Switch, because there's so much anticipation for that game. People will buy it. So we'll have to wait and see what they do. All right. I'm pretty confident a Metroid HD collection will come to Switch. Yeah. You would think it would, right? I'm asking you guys as a possibility if they were to do that. There was what that rumor about a 2D Metroid coming. That would be a sequel to was it Fusion? Also a Paper Mario rumor as well coming. Those sound like Switch OG type of games, right? 2D games. And usually Paper Mario games, they have come more towards like the middle to end of the lifespan of a console. So I guess it would be like the right time now to release a Paper Mario type of game. Like we talked about, 2D Metroid games and Paper Mario games, they're not really known for pushing console sales. They're more like pushing extra software sales to continue, momentum of a console. So I could see that releasing as a focused games for the current Nintendo Switch on the market, as even just supplementary to what this new hardware could possibly bring as well. Something for everybody, basically. Obviously, those games would run on the new Switch also, but if those rumors are true, it would make sense for them to target certain demographics as they go to release on the current Switch to make sure it runs on both models if they're doing it that way, and then have some big budget AAA games on this new Switch, also features on the new Switch that the old one possibly doesn't have, and obviously better graphics and whatnot to justify the increased price. So there's lots of possibilities they can do there to make sure that you spend your money on their console, which is what they want. They don't want you buying a PlayStation 5 necessarily. Regardless of what people may tell you, Nintendo does want your money to be spent on their platform. Like you hear people say, well, if you want third-party support, go buy other consoles. But do you really think Nintendo wants you to buy other consoles to get those games? They don't want that. They want you to buy their console. And they've proven that to you guys by releasing The Witcher 3, Doom 2016, announcing Doom Eternal, Overwatch, Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus, Skyrim, The Outer Worlds coming to the Switch also. There's AAA games Nintendo wants to have on their console, and then they've found ways to get them on there. Obviously, they would prefer that you purchase these games on their platform if they could get them on their platform. So if they could get Cyberpunk on this new Switch, they would like you to purchase it on their console and not go have to buy a PlayStation 5 to play it. It's easy for me to tell you, yeah, just go buy another console if you want those games. But Nintendo as a business, they want your money. So they've proven that they want these games. They're getting BioShock, right? The BioShock collection. They're getting Call of Juarez. They're getting what's the other game that's rated? Saints Row the Fourth. Yeah. So those are AAA games from Xbox 360 that they're getting on the Switch, right? Why do you think they're getting these games on the Switch? That's a demographic that they didn't go after before, but all of a sudden they're going after that demographic now. Why are they doing that? Well, probably because they want their audience to experience these blockbuster games on their console. The current Switch isn't getting the new ones, so they're gonna have to provide something, and that does make the audience at least happy a little bit that they're getting those games. BioShock's a great series, but wouldn't you like to have brand new games? Brand new AAA games as well. Those are AAA games from the past. So having AAA games from the past right now on your console is nice, but it's not as good as having AAA games that are brand new on your console right now. And I think Nintendo knows that, obviously, or they wouldn't be trying their hardest to get The Witcher 3 to run on the console, or trying to get certain games like Doom Eternal to run on the Switch as well, which I do think that's perfect in line to have that Doom Eternal to be Panic Button's coming out party on this new, more powerful Switch this year as well, because they did hint very heavily in my Doom Eternal video I did a few days ago that in 2018, in an interview with what was it, id Software, Bethesda, one of the executive producers of Doom Eternal, that the Switch port, or they didn't call it a port actually, the Switch version of Doom Eternal was being built. They said, okay, this is what they said. They said that it was being made at the same time as the other versions of the game, and that it would be their target was to release it at the same time as them. All of a sudden, and then it went quiet. That was back at E3 around that time, August 2018. Then fast forward to the midway point of 2019, after they showed more Doom Eternal stuff, they talked to Panic. There's an interview with Panic Button about the game, not just the game, but another port they did, and they asked about a Switch Pro, which is what I talked about, and then the one of the producers there at Panic Button hinted at it. And he actually encouraged, okay, I'm not lying, look at my video, he encouraged speculation on a Switch Pro. He said no comment about a Switch Pro coming, but you're welcome to speculate, he said. And he'll just drink his coffee, is what he said in his interview. He said that's a fact, okay? That was back in 2019. He welcomed speculation on a Switch Pro. And this was the guy from Panic Button. They're in cahoots with Nintendo big time. So you can bet Doom Eternal, since they're porting it to the Switch, is more than likely going to be a showcase title from Panic Button on this new, more powerful Switch, because they hinted at it themselves that Nintendo has a more powerful Switch coming, and they encouraged you, the fan, to speculate. So, hey, man, that's what we're doing here. And then now we have reports that it is coming this year. So it's exciting. You guys are talking more about the Street Fighter 5. Yeah, I saw it about it on the online. EB Games, right? Tweeted about it. That's great. I hope it does come. Street Fighter 5 is a good game. Facts kill opinions. That interesting name. Switch Pro will have exclusive games without a doubt, and people won't even notice or care once they see Mario Kart 10, Prime 4, and Breath of the Wild running at 60 frames per second, at least 1440p. It's over. I tend to agree. People, come on, guys, be honest with yourselves. we're enthusiasts here. Obviously, we're gamers, so you're gonna buy the latest, greatest stuff. I can't speak for everyone out there in the world, but since you're coming to this channel, chatting with me, obviously you're interested in this new hardware. So you see something that runs good, looks good, and sleeker, better, nicer than the old version, and improves your current games, whatever. Are you gonna buy it or not? You probably are, right? You can tell yourself you're probably not. You're not gonna buy it, but most likely, people who are here with me in the chat, you're gonna buy that thing, especially if it has some really nice upgrades to it. Oh, you heard the exclusivity for Street Fighter V will expire. Okay. Well, I mean, that's where things are going anyway with games. A lot of games are not remaining exclusive from third party anymore, and it makes business sense for them to put it on most consoles. You know, more money the better. Now, for first party games, I don't think you'll see Nintendo do that anytime soon. Nintendo is really guarded with their first party IP. They've done some things with like indie developers and things like that, putting like some of their likeness into their games and whatnot. But as far as releasing their games on another console like PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, I don't think so. I want the Switch. Hope it's not called Pro. Please don't. Yeah, I don't think they'll call it a Pro either. We've had this discussion before. Pro is just a superficial name that media and fans have given Pro. Pro signifies a upgrade to the current. That's all it means. Pro just means an upgrade, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's what it's going to be called, and it doesn't actually confirm what Nintendo's plans with this console is. It's just a subtitle that fans give it, because who knows what you're going to call it, right? We had a whole thing about this in the last stream, like what we would call this new Switch. Like you said, new Switch. Okay. Yeah, new 3DS, new Switch. Those are all. They're not very good names, to be honest with you. But the new 3DS did sell really well, regardless of the name. I guess it's better than 3DS U, right? So at least you put new in the title. Like Nintendo, I think, just gave up. They're like, you know what? We don't know how to name things anymore. I think if we call it new, people will get that it's a new console. Okay, new 3DS. That's probably what they did in marketing. It's like, you know what? We give up. We don't know how to name things. Wii U. Okay, we'll just call it new 3DS. Hope it sells. And it did. Switch DX, Switch XL. The big favorite, of course, is Super Switch, Switch X, Switch. I think someone says Switch NX, right? Because that kind of means like next, not necessarily NX, but the code name. Super Nintendo Switch, yeah. Omega Super Switch 64, yeah. Switch UI, that's funny. Yeah, it's the funny thing about Nintendo is that you can almost guarantee that they may call it something you weren't expecting, which I hope they don't. As long as it's not called Switch Pro or Switch U, or what else? What else would be a bad name? New Switch wouldn't be that bad. Switch U would be bad. Switch Pro would be really lazy and lame, to be honest with you. Switch Pro, ugh. Especially since everyone's been calling it Switch Pro for so long. I highly doubt Nintendo will actually call it Switch Pro for that sake. They'll rather call it something that sounds more fresh. Switch Strawberry, yeah. Switch Jamba Juice. Switch Fresh Jamba Juice. Switch Fresh. So yeah, so if this new Switch is $399, has that IGZO display with no bezels, let's say the max screen resolution on the actual hardware itself is 1440p. Again, not saying games are rendered at that level, because we talked about this before, and they may have some kind of VR capability on this new Switch because of the previous patents and their interest in VR. Maybe they'll have some targeted VR games on this new Switch. So they have a 1440p screen, 720p in each eye, new Joy-Cons, whatnot. But regular games, obviously, would be 1080p, 720p, 900p on the go, what have you. And then 1080p on your TV upscaled to 4K. And magnesium alloy body, the nicer, more comfortable Joy-Cons, maybe a D-pad on it. Maybe it has a few AAA third-party games like Resident Evil 2 Remake, Resident Evil 3 Remake, Call of Duty, things like that. And it's $399. Would you guys be there day one and be buying it? I will, if that is the case. So let me know in the chat if you will be there day one buying it, or would you wait? Because I think that would be enough to buy it day one, to be honest with you. It shows you something that you don't have currently, and it's way better. I would definitely buy that day one. Hen, not day one. Okay, interesting. Why wouldn't you buy it day one? It'd be $399 be too much for you? Paper Metroid. The extreme crossover you never asked for. Nintendo Switch Plus, Birdman. Day one, day zero, day one, better Joy-Con, Switch XL. Yeah, it looks like also the online will be working better on this new Switch as well, if what these job listings are to be believed, because of everything they're working on with the new network infrastructure. It looks like they'll be making the online a lot smoother too. They need a lot of work with their online. I think you'll agree, right? Peer-to-peer stuff that has no support from Nintendo as far as any type of bounce back peer-to-peer servers in your locations. That's basically why it doesn't work very well on the Switch. The reason why I've looked into it, I've talked to some people behind the scenes, of course, about it too, about how PlayStation's network works, and they have local like bounce back quote unquote servers in your local area. So technically, you are playing peer-to-peer with your friends on Street Fighter 5, for example, but your signal is going to a server and bouncing off that server in your location and going to New York, for example, and going to someone playing there, thus taking care of any lag that may take place in between the locations. So you're not actually playing directly peer-to-peer directly with that person across the country. Your signal's bouncing off one little connection server to another connection server, bouncing off together to minimize latency that happens in between those connections. So that's something Nintendo needs to have on their network going forward. And they were hiring for AWS, which is what Amazon uses for their network. It's also what Sony uses currently for their network. I think they're upgrading to Azure, which is Microsoft's, which is why you don't have hardly very much lag with them either. There's always going to be lag, though, a little bit with online gaming, but they can clean it up much more if they have something like that they use those bounce back servers like that for peer-to-peer connections. So I think they could do that. I'm not sure how much that would cost, but that's basically why you would see a price increase for Nintendo Online if they did that. Right now, they're charging you for basically connecting to someone across the country with your own internet. And they're giving you some free games here and there with Switch Online and having to do voice chat on the phone. They're charging you guys for that, us for that. So obviously that's not very good. So that is one reason I think why Sony, part of the reason why they charge $50, $60 a year, because they're keeping that online experience relatively good enough and lag free for games like fighting games, Mortal Kombat 11 and Street Fighter 5, for example. Pretty good. You'll always have some lag though, of course. Let's see what you guys saying here. The Switch dock has been discontinued. New dock design. No dock needed or another non-Switch switch. By the way, Switch FX. No, sorry. Oh, Kool-Aid. Yeah. Who said the dock has been discontinued? Can you not buy it anywhere anymore? Someone let me know in the chat. I haven't checked. I don't need a dock, obviously. If you already have one, you don't need to buy another one. But it is true. I haven't really seen a dock for sale in stores lately. Maybe they have. I don't know. I haven't looked into it. Let me know if you guys have heard something about the dock being discontinued. That would be news. The online was bearable when it was free. Well, yeah, there you go, right? The Wii U had better online and it was free. I heard the Pro was going to be only a home console. Yeah, who told you that? Jane Bruner. There was a rumor. That's why I don't cover usually the rumors on my channel anymore. Because there was a rumor, I think a few months ago, back in like October, that they were going to release a new Switch like in 2021 that was a home console that could do 4K, native 4K, but the specs were all messed up. It was only lacking. It had like 64 gigabytes of RAM, like storage in the console. Very bad. Rumor was very, very bad. I wasn't even going to touch that rumor or talk about it on my channel because it was just too fake. So that's not what I do. I don't just cover all the rumors. I think, what was it, back in the NX days? I think I covered more of those type of things. But yeah, I don't like to do that anymore because it's just fake. It's a lot of fake information out there. So if you want to entertain every little rumor out there and make a video about it, I think there's other channels for that. That's not what I do. The reason why I covered this rumor is because everyone was saying that it was a credible source. So when you hear things like credible source and they've gotten things right in the past, did they really though? That's why I had to look into that rumor, because a lot of times YouTubers and websites will report stuff for the clicks and not actually do the legwork and research things about the information themselves before they post the rumor, because they hear somewhere from someone else, they say, oh, I heard they got something right in the past, so it must be true. And then websites and some YouTube channels run with that information and they say, oh, okay, let's quickly make a video about it and quickly make a website article about it because so-and-so said they got something right in the past. Did they list what they got right in the past, though? I didn't see anyone talk about what that website got right in the past. Nobody. I didn't see any reports about what they got right in the past besides someone saying they got some mobile chip right in the past, or they got mobile chips right in the past on their forums. I haven't heard anything about what it was. So since that was the case, I wasn't really going to cover it much on my channel when I heard that at first. But then when I researched about that website, Klein.net, and saw that they got vaguely right something 7 years ago on a Samsung smartphone flip phone by posting pictures online on their forum. That's basically what IGN forums or Reset Era does. They users find stuff and they'll say, "Hey, I found this thing and check it out. This could be a leak." That's basically what it was, what they were doing there on that website 7 years ago. But the actual leak of that Samsung Fold phone came from a different website, like the day or 3 days before that, back in 2013. So nobody reported that online, though, about what that website was correct upon beforehand. So that's why I did an entire dedicated video on that instead of just covering it briefly, because there was enough people saying that this website is credible and we believe it. Like people were believing it right away without actually looking more into it about it. So like I asked you guys in that video too, if you know of something else that website got things correct on, let me know. And I'll definitely give them credit for it. But I Googled it. I looked into it. I dug for information on that Klein website, and I didn't see anything besides that little Samsung smartphone flip phone thing they did 7 years ago. Okay. Facts kill opinions. See, if you guys have names like that, I can remember like Super Male Vitality Overdose and things like that. Do you believe Nintendo delayed or restarted to make Prime 4 on purpose to make it a Switch Pro exclusive? Just saying. No, I don't think that's the case. I think the game had extremely bad development issues. There were rumors and reports from people who, some verified, I guess, people were saying that the game was being not outsourced, but the game was being developed in multiple different locations, part in Japan, part in Singapore, part in other areas. Again, just rumor. But the game could have been broken at a certain point, and they're like, you know what, this game is just, we can't continue with this game as it is. We gotta scrap this, and it's just not working. We need to get Retro Studios back at the helm, which they should have been there anyway, but in my opinion. But hey, it is what it is. Now the game is well under development with Retro Studios. They're hiring guys from the former Crysis developers to help them with it. Former Halo developers have joined Retro Studios. They brought back the Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze director. So the game is well under development right now. So it's kind of exciting for Metroid Prime 4. I don't think they delayed it though on purpose. I think the game had serious development problems. For Nintendo to actually come out and say, like, you know what, we're gonna have to cancel and restart. It must have been really bad. I'd love to see it though. That old build. Some released footage later. So it's Nintendo Direct this week. It's possible, but if not this coming week, they're probably not going to do it on early February, because that's probably when PlayStation 5 is going to be revealed. Nintendo wants to get away from Sony's reveal there. So it's either going to be next week or middle of February is my guess, after PlayStation 5 is revealed. And then we'll see if Nintendo has a response to what Sony reveals with the PlayStation 5. Ooh, could they be revealing this new Switch? We'll have to wait and see. All eyes are going to be on Sony and their PlayStation 5. People are going to be putting their money down on PlayStation 5. What is Nintendo going to do to get some of those customers maybe not willing to wait until PlayStation 5 to put their money on their console instead? It's business. They want your money, and they want games, and they're shooting for a demographic on Nintendo consoles now that they haven't done since GameCube. They had, like, Resident Evil 4, for example, was a GameCube exclusive. Currently, the Nintendo is trying really, really hard to get more mature rated games on their console. BioShock Collection, granted, even though it's last gen, it shows goodwill towards you, the fans, that they're trying to get these games on their console going forward. So to get new games going forward, you're more likely to buy the new games coming on their new Switch, because they're getting those demographics right now. Like I said, even though they're old, doesn't matter. That is a good sign if you're a Nintendo fan. Nintendo is trying to appease the core gamers on their system. They're not going after the Blue Ocean strategy per se with the Nintendo Switch as their main focus, like they did on the Wii. Remember, the Wii was Blue Ocean, right? Get your grandma to play. I haven't heard Nintendo talk about getting your grandma to play Breath of the Wild, or get your grandma to play Doom 2016 or Wolfenstein 2 that has Nazis and all kinds of bad words and swearing in it and smoking. So there's Nintendo's going after a demographic. The Witcher 3, which has nudity in it, bad for kids. There's no Blue Ocean strategy here. I'm seeing Nintendo go after the core gamers. So it's a really, really good sign, guys. It's a really good sign of the future for Nintendo. Does Nintendo want to? Nintendo is probably not going to want to keep getting these old 10-year-old ports. Like, Metro Redux. The original game came out 10 years ago in 2010. Metro Last Light 2013. These are great old AAA games that are mature rated, right? So going forward, though, they're gonna want to get brand new games, especially with PlayStation 5 coming out. So it's good news, guys. It's good news. So you do need to support the idea of Nintendo going after these AAA games, because they are proving it to you right now that they are doing that with the current Switch. They're trying their darndest to get these AAA games on the Switch. Developers simply are not going to port some of the more demanding games on the system because it's simply more targeted spec-wise, Tegra X1, towards an Xbox 360 plus, Wii U plus type of range. So they can shoehorn certain games to run on there by doing a lot of extra work and a lot of extra time in development to get to work on the Switch, like The Witcher 3, which is a 5-year-old game now. But it takes a lot of effort, a lot of work. That effort, though, is going to pay off for Nintendo and for you guys, for me, the fans, to purchase a system that will run new games a lot easier, because that's you want to reward hard work, right? So Nintendo's putting in that legwork to get these extremely hard to run games on the Switch. So yeah, definitely, if this new Switch, which is most likely coming in 2020, let's just be honest, will be getting AAA third-party ports. I want to see each and every one of you do your darndest to support that effort, because Nintendo has put the effort in to get these difficult to run games on the Switch right now, and we want to have those games going forward. So definitely, if there's a game you want that's coming to this new Switch, and say you have, definitely support it and buy that, because that's what you want. You want all the games, and you want all the new ones on your system going forward. It's a lot of fun. I hope it gets Bluetooth. Yeah, there's a good chance it will. They were working on Bluetooth back in 2018 for new hardware, so that may already be done and ready to go. Wireless Bluetooth headphones or something like that. Hey, John O'Daz. If Nintendo gets back to the SNES days with the Switch and gets pretty much all third-party titles, there's no need to own any other systems, I feel. You see? Isn't that that's the whole point? You see, if you're a video game company, the reason why a lot of people just own PlayStation is because PlayStation has everything, and they just sometimes certain families can only pick. They don't have the money to pick all consoles. They pick PlayStation, which is why it sold over 106 million consoles. PlayStation 4, because why? PlayStation 4 has everything. They may tell little Johnny that, but I want Mario. They say, oh, sorry, you're gonna have to settle for Ratchet and Clank or Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn or something like that. You're gonna have to settle for something else, Johnny, because we can only afford PlayStation 4, and your older brother and daddy want to play Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto and God of War and all these other games that are on PlayStation only, that are not on the Switch. So if Nintendo has a console that runs everything, obviously not PlayStation exclusives, but runs everything, and has Breath of the Wild or Zelda, and it has Metroid Prime 4, and has Super Mario, and has Donkey Kong. Ooh. Wow, right? That's the issue Nintendo has had for a long time. Oh my gosh, I have to buy another console now. Gaming has expanded to the point where you actually have to, because that's just the way it is. There's no, PlayStation obviously has done a very good job with their exclusives, so maybe you do want to buy a PlayStation, but Nintendo could theoretically, for Nintendo fans, give you what you want for the most part without having to force you to go buy another console. Oh, okay, Call of Duty just came out. It's not coming on Nintendo. I gotta go buy a PlayStation for it. Or Red Dead Redemption 2 came out. That's not coming on Nintendo. I gotta go buy a PlayStation for it. Or Resident Evil 2 Remake came out. Or Cyberpunk came out. Resident Evil 3 Remake came out. Sekiro came out. Jedi Fallen Order came out. Man, I really gotta buy another console, because I'm just not getting these games with my current Nintendo system. That's what PlayStation would love. They want you to go buy their consoles. So, but man, look at all the money Nintendo is leaving out on the table with royalties from third parties by not getting those games on their ecosystem of Switch consoles. Nintendo gets those games coming to their Switch ecosystem. Man, you are going to be so happy with Nintendo and what they're providing for you that there's no doubt you're going to be buying everything on your Nintendo console. And maybe later on down the line, when there's a few big exclusives on the PlayStation 5, if you're, like I'm saying, if you're a Nintendo fan diehard, maybe then later on you'll buy a PlayStation 5, because guess what? Nintendo's got you covered. So that's what you want. That's the exciting part about all these things. That's what third-party support gives you as a Nintendo fan. It gives you the support needed on your console, and it also gives Nintendo more time that they want to develop quadruple A games, not just triple A, but quadruple A games. You want these big, awesome games from Nintendo, and you don't want them to feel rushed to release their games. You want them to be extremely high quality, And in the meantime, guess what? You don't got to go buy a PlayStation to play Call of Duty, because guess what? Nintendo has a console that's getting it for you. And guess where that money is going to? It's being injected into Nintendo's ecosystem, and it's being given back to you with the gamer with the games themselves. So that's exactly, I guarantee you, that's exactly what Nintendo would love to have. And that is one of the big driving forces why this more powerful Switch is coming most likely in 2020. Not just because they want to release a more powerful system to run games at a higher frame rate, but to get expanded user base and to continue to grow their ecosystem of gamers. And the expanded user base, they've already started by getting certain AAA games on the current Switch. They've proven it to you guys that they want these games. Now they just need to upgrade their hardware to get the rest of them. And so we'll all be there on day one, I'm sure. It's awesome. All right, guys. I think I'm going to call it there for the stream. Is there any final questions that you have before I go? I hope you guys enjoyed the stream, by the way. Robert C. I'm not going to do your whole name. Which new Switch rumors are you the most believable? To you, are the most believable or most credible? So far, I think it's the Digitimes one, because it's backed by Mochizuki from the Wall Street Journal and Serkan Toto, who's gotten things right in the past, and they were very direct with their information. So I do think Digitimes is the most credible source. I don't think that if you go back and watch the stream like we talked about in depth with Klein.net, I don't think they're as credible as people thought. And also I have my doubts about Volta because of the technical difficulties with that. And of course, I don't think it's going to be Xavier based either because of the difficulties with that as well, as far as them having to redo that chip. But like I said, there's no dismissing of that chip. There's no dismissing of Volta. It could be that, whatever. I'm just saying that it seems like a very, very tall task for Nintendo to do that with Nvidia, when they could have a easier option with one of these other companies like Imaginations Tech, Qualcomm, and even things like AMD. You know, we talked about last year that they were doing Virtuo driver, OS virtualization, so emulating an operating system for the Switch. So it doesn't have to be NVIDIA. It doesn't have to be any of these companies. It can be whatever Nintendo wants, as long as they get it running the OS for the old Switch. They can do that with the new Switch. So it's all out there for you guys to look at for yourself, and look at all the information on my channel. It's all out there in the open for you. There's nothing. It's all clear, very clear information. All right. Any other questions? Oh yeah, thanks for coming, John O'Daz. If I'm not pronouncing your name right. Do you think the new Switch will be 1080p 60 frames per second handheld and 1440p docked? And not necessarily, Reed Alexander. I think handheld will probably still be 720p to 900p probably. Because they're going to have a higher res screen. I'm almost 100% sure they're going to have a higher than 720p screen. They wouldn't be upgrading to a IGZO display if they weren't going to have at least 1080p screen. So I think I don't think you're going to have all games locked at 720p, even in handheld mode. Certain games will probably be 720p still, but I think they could actually have a higher resolution in handheld mode. So 1440p, I don't know about that. I think 1080p is where your expectations should be. 60 frames though, yeah, for sure. 60 frames should always be the target. Always. You should never be hoping for 30 frames, because 30 frames gets you into trouble quick. Would Nintendo ditch the dock? I don't think so. Life is Zank. I don't think they would ditch the dock. But yeah, I think that's it, guys. I usually like to keep these at 2 hours. I don't like to keep you too long. Go get something to eat and go and watch the stream. We covered a lot of information here, and hope you guys enjoyed it. I certainly did. I enjoyed talking to you guys, and I'll see you guys very soon in the next video. Take care.